Hello, this is Tracy from Creekside Studio. I am going to talk to you this morning a little bit about printmaking and curating your prints. Save a couple of bucks. First, you probably want to have a pretty good ruler. I like the metal ones. They're a little bit thinner, easier to get closer to the paper when you're using it for curating. The fan brush. This is my favorite one. It's super soft. It's good for when you're erasing, just kind of clean off the print without having to use your actual hand. And then I keep on hand a jar, fill it with a little bit of water and get a little paintbrush. And this will help when you're trying to, take off a chine colle, loosen up the glue, or if you have a ding in your print on the paper, you can just go over with a little bit of water and then smooth it out with a burnisher to kind of, soften up the paper fibers and gently burnish out the ding. And also whenever you're curating some ink off of the margins, and if you have to go far into the margin down to the paper pulp, this will actually help put the pulp back down and you'll never even know it happened. And this, believe it or not, is a drywall sandpaper block, and I use this whenever I want to try to recreate a decal, or if the paper tear didn't quite happen the way I wanted it to and it's a little bit of rough, jagged on the sides and not very uniform with the others, then you can use this block to kind of file off those big paper edges. And then a burnisher. Yes, you need a burnisher in all curating so that you can put your pulp back down on the print after you've curated that area. Erasers, lots and lots of, I could talk for days about erasers. This eraser is actually called the Alvin dry cleaning pad, and you can get these at any local art supply shop or online. They're about $8, and it's a soft fiber, and it's filled with powdered gum eraser. And so if you have some graphite or pencil marks off into the margins, it just very gently will clean them off and not pick up the paper pulp at all. And so you could just do that and then use your fan brush and take off the dust. The Vanish is great, but I tend to go through them very quickly. It's super soft eraser, but I like it a lot. Faber-Castell is soft. It's also another very soft one. But it's great because when you're erasing, the little bits that come off of the eraser will just roll right up into a ball, and then you can just easily get rid of those. By far the best right here. This is a vinyl eraser, the Staedtler, and it is probably my very favorite. It actually will not only get pencil off and smudges, but it can actually take off ink off of your print if it's a very light spot of ink that you're trying to get off. So these guys are great. And also what you can do with them is, say you have just a little bit of an area, a hard part that you just want to go into, you can cut it down to any shape, a triangle, square, just like a little point, whatever you need. You can cut them down and make any kind of angle that you need. And they're soft, but they also will hold up very well, whereas these will disappear very quickly. So these are your erasers that I would consider to be the very best. And this is a ceramics tool, and it has a wedge or a very tip point on it, and this can be used to tip in ink. So something happens while you're printing and some area of the print didn't get ink, then and you have to tip it in. And it's always best, if you're having to do that, having to tip in some ink, is to do it when it's wet. To try to tip a print whenever it's dry, you will always see that you did that. And so my advice is to do that while it's wet. And this is glassine that, just a regular glassine that you make, covers for your interleaving for for your prints and any kind of scraps. I just keep it because it's great to use when you're having to, you know, if you have that spot that you have to burnish down, you put this on top of the print and then burnish on this part, and it's smooth, and will keep the print clean when you know, try not to touch it anymore, and make sure that it's ready to go. Okay, so that is pretty much what I always keep in my bag of curating bag of all, you know, just whatever situations. Oh, and let me not forget here, a box of razors. You always need razors. These straight edge razors are the best. And these are what I use to take off ink, curate chine colle, just any kind of curating is always done with the straight edge razors. So a box of those. Okay, clear this off to do a little curating. To show you, I have a print here that I'm working with Tina Weitz. She is one of the Creekside Studio founders and artists, and we're working on a new series of hers called Telescoping Landscapes. And this one is the sugarcane twister, and it is a gravure plate that has a little bit of a chine colle up on the top part. And I don't know if you could see right here, it has a little bit of the edge, you know, where it expanded and went outside the image, and I need to take that off because we definitely don't want that to show up. And you don't want to lose the print because you have a little bit of that going on. So what I do is I line the ruler up exactly on the edge, and then I'll take one of my straight edge razors and score the chine colle paper. This is a kozo, so it's a very, very lightweight, very sheer paper. And I just score that lightly. I don't want to go through the support paper, the BFK Reeves. I don't want to go through that. And you just want to take off the kozo. And so then I take my brush and then I just kind of wet the part of the kozo that I want to pull back and loosen it up from the glue, the chine colle paste. And then you take your straight edge razor and you pick it up on the corner. So you can see right here, I'm pulling up a little bit of that chine colle. That area that had the colle part on there. Now we can just take our burnisher and our glassine paper, take a little tear up, a little bit off, and go in on top, and then just burnish down on the edge, just very carefully. Okay. Sometimes you might want to, if there's a little bit of ink residue hanging out. So you might have to go in and erase a little bit, and that will pick up the paper pulp a little bit. And so there, that chine colle is now gone. And just now you just want to lay the pulp down on the paper, and it's dry at this point. You don't want to get it super wet, just enough to lift up the kozo, you know, separate it from the glue. And that is how you take off a little bit of chine colle. If you have some, because when it's wet, you know, sometimes it tends to swell up a little bit. So there you have it. One print done. And there we go. This one had a little bit of an ink spot from when I had ink on my hand, and I must have, when I was pinning it up, I must somehow have put my inky finger on there. And for these, you know, you're just going to take the straight edge razor again, and you want to hold it, you know, pretty much straight up and down, maybe slight angle, and go along the ink, and you're just, I guess I would say you're shaving it, shaving off a little bit. You're actually taking off the paper pulp, and you're removing the ink. And this, you can only do this after the print has completely dried. You never want to try to go in and pull ink off the margins, you know, when it's wet, because all you'll end up doing is pulling off, or actually smashing down the ink into the pulp a little bit further, making it even harder to get off. And so, you know, this, if you do see that you've gotten a big ink spot on there, and if you can lift up the paper and on there in the back and you can see the ink spot, then you can't, that's done. You can't do that. You'll end up making a hole before you can actually get that done. So there, it's completely gone. Love that straight edge razor. And then I go over the top with a little bit of the Staedtler vinyl eraser and just kind of smooth the pulp, get it all even. You don't want to have it, you know, a little bit uneven. You'll be able to see that. And again, you want to take your glassine paper and go over the whole section again. And just take your burnisher and you just lightly do it, maybe go into a little bit of a circle. If this paper was textured, you know, it would be a little bit harder to make it not be seen. This is a BFK and it's pretty smooth. If you have a highly textured paper and you're trying to clean off the ink, then I would definitely say you would need to go ahead and do every step we just did, but then you might want to spritz a print and then blot it and then put it underneath some sheetrock. Just get a couple of pieces of sheetrock and some newsprint, put it on top, and then let it put it underneath and let it sit and dry so that the pulp can kind of reshape itself underneath the block. It'll all get flat again, and you won't be able to tell that you've had an area that you had to go in and curate. But that, again, that's super texture paper, where this is definitely not a texture paper. Okay, so there's another print that has been able to go into the edition, and we didn't have to lose a print.